Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today for our webinar on exploring creative subjects at university. My name is Victoria. I'm the outreach coordinator for the EducationUSA network. And some of you may have already heard about EducationUSA, but just to give you like a brief overview. So we are a global network of the US State Department with more than 400 advising centers all around the world. And I would just like to highlight that all that we do, all our events, advising sessions, lectures, and resources that we offer are completely free of charge. So we are an official source on US higher education. We offer accurate, comprehensive, and unbiased information about opportunities to study at accredited higher education institutions in the US. So whether you're going to get a degree program, a bachelor's, master's, or PhD degree, or you would like to do an exchange program, we are your best bet, and we aim to help you really find your best fit and make sure that you succeed on your path to US study. So just to clarify, we do not promote certain universities in the US. We really aim to help our students understand the process of applying to the US, as the application process can be quite different from that in Ukraine or even in other countries. So we are really here to help you with any step of the process, answer questions from beginning to end. We have our advising center, our main center in Kyiv, offering both online and in-person consultations. So feel free to sign up for a free consultation. And today, as I've said, we're going to cover the topic of studying creative subjects as university. So you may already know that the application process to creative majors may be quite different from other programs and other admissions. So like they may not only require standard documents. So we have today our wonderful guest here with us, Tamar Karchava, EducationUSA Adviser at AmerikaHaus in Cologne, and Olivia Anderson, Associate Director of International Admissions at the Savannah College of Art and Design. And Olivia is going to tell us more about the world of creative careers, exploring studying creative subjects at the university level, and like really succeed in a powerful portfolio. So Olivia, please take it away.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much. Super excited to be here. And Tamara, did you want to speak at all about your center as well? I want to make sure I don't cut in there.
Yeah, I will just take a few moments. I will be very brief, okay? Yeah. So I will just share my screen very quickly and you guys can see my presentation, right? Okay. So hello, my name is Tamar Karchava. I'm originally from Georgia, but I'm representing EducationUSA NRW, so AmerikaHaus NRW, so to be clear and precise, in Cologne. But today I'll be talking a bit more about EducationUSA in Germany. Okay, so very briefly about our center. We are founded as a successor organization of AmerikaHaus, and in our case, AmerikaHaus Cologne, but we're not the only ones in Germany. We are located in Cologne, Apostelstrasse, but we do offer our events or sessions or all the activities, let's say hybrid, online and in person as well, but mostly, let's say, advising goes online. There are different projects at our center, and my focus is EducationUSA, but besides that, we do have 50 plus, but even more events on transatlantic topics, let's say education, culture, economy, politics, and reaching out a very good number of guests. Hybrid way. There is another project, AmerikaHaus at School, which brings some similar transatlantic topics and US speakers to schools. And very active and very popular topic is American Dream or US elections, etc., etc. And as I mentioned, my part is Education USA, and I have written new because we are the newest in Germany. So it's like for the last 2 years, it's not that new, but still compared to other center, we started operating our services, let's say 2 years ago. And briefly about Germany, we do what what Victoria mentioned. Generally, Education USA provides unbiased, accurate, and current information on different studying or research possibilities in the US, no matter where we are located. And you see the numbers, so we always show them. We are 430 advising centers covering the whole world pretty much. And as for Germany, we are 10 certified education advising centers, and you see the website. It connects all German centers across the country. And why I'm representing Germany and what's the connection between two centers? Not recently, already for several months, I'm assigned to assist Ukrainian students, whoever nowadays are residing in Germany. So of course, Victoria is also assisting from their side, but in case, for example, I cannot cover some topics, Victoria is of help, but there are very many students locally or prospective students, and they, in case they might need our assistance, we are here as well. And we're really proud of this achievement that I contacted all test providers, and so far what we got on the plate that GRE and TOEFL offers for Ukrainians. So it's 20 GRE vouchers for half price, and as for TOEFL, it's a $40 discount on each TOEFL test without limitation. And I'm really happy that some Ukrainian students already used these offers. And again and again, if you know somebody in need of these offers, please spread the word. I would be very grateful. And the last slide is just all contacts from my side, the AmerikaHaus homepage, my email, Facebook, Instagram, and EducationUSA website, which covers all these centers. Thank you very much. Now, Olivia, floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much, both Victoria and Tamara. I am super excited to be here today. It's always really fun for me to discuss with students the possibilities of pursuing a creative career, as well as studying a creative subject at the university level. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. Just 1 second here. Okay, great. So as mentioned, my name is Olivia Anderson, and I am an Associate Director of Admission for International Students at SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. So to give you a little bit of context as to who exactly we are, what the University of SCAD is, I have a 2-minute video, and then we will launch into what it's like to study a creative subject at the university level, at a professional level, and portfolios, of course, an important aspect of the application process. So without further ado, I'm going to play a video, and I hope that the sound shares. It should.
I'm driven to create,
to be expressive,
to collaborate with only the best and across disciplines.
The most exciting field to be in is design, because a designer has to think about people, about technology, about the activities that are taking place. It gives you the license to explore and investigate and to try to create a system that enhances life.
All you have to do is create. SCAD's really great at giving all the students the ability to build things and make things.
We have immersive reality, the latest AR/VR equipment, and we're super proud to say that we're the first creative university to have an XR stage. This is a whole new paradigm for shooting, film, and visual effects.
SCAD's teaching philosophy is built on design thinking. With programs like the Business of Beauty and Fragrance, SCAD students go on to become entrepreneurs and pursue creative careers with top companies around the world.
SCAD does an amazing job at making industry connections and making things available to students that might not be otherwise possible.
Hey, bees.
Hey, SCAD.
Hello, SCAD.
I absolutely love SCAD.
It's been amazing to have SCAD as a touchpad for resources, for inspiration, for people that just really believe in you and will do whatever they can to help you succeed.
I am a designer.
I'm an entrepreneur.
storyteller. Thanks to SCAD, my future as a creative professional is real. It's happening.
You are the next incarnation of this beautiful planet that needs design, that needs beauty, that needs your mind and your spirit and your energy, your power, your unique voice.
This is SCAD.
1, 2, 3, to graduate as salutatorian here as the first member of my family to attend a college in the US, it's just an incredible honor.
Because of SCAD, I am doing what I really truly love to do. It's been a blessing.
So hopefully that left you feeling a little bit inspired. I know it always gets me really excited just seeing what students are doing. It's really fun to be a part of an environment where everyone really enjoys what they're doing because you truly are pursuing something that you're super passionate about. So as you saw in the video, we have a couple campuses in Savannah and Atlanta, as well as Lacoste, France. And we have an online option as well. So let's get into it. What does it mean to study a creative subject? Oftentimes when you say, oh, you want to study maybe art or design at the university level, there's this concept of, okay, we're talking maybe painting, maybe illustration, maybe sculpture. Now, yes, those are absolutely creative subjects, but as you can see, we have a lot of other options as well. In the creative industry, there are so many different pathways that you can be taking. And it can be a little bit more traditional art focus, or it can be on the really design side of things as well, which can get quite techy into coding. Really high-tech industries are looking for creative individuals as well. So as you can see on this list here, there's everything from themed entertainment design. Now that's like theme parks. Those are creative individuals creating those. You have graphic design, which is fantastic for everything from posters, advertising, to illustrations. We have design for sustainability. Of course, that's a really important subject, right? How are we designing spaces and products with sustainability in mind? There's also something called the business of beauty and fragrance. Now, the beauty industry itself, that's a $500 billion industry. So you can bet there are jobs in that industry and you need to have proper skills to go into it. So really make sure that you fully understand what it means and just how many opportunities there are to study something creatively. And same thing for parents too. Sometimes there's a little bit of an idea from parents of being worried about their child, making sure they want to get a job afterwards. And that's completely understandable. But we're going to talk about why there are so many jobs that do exist and students do really well after college. So kind of coming up with this, going along with what it means to study art and design. Whether you're interested in history or coding, or maybe you want to do something that's STEM, there are options for you. What exactly does an art and design university look like? Well, it has state-of-the-art technology. It's very collaborative in nature. You're working with a lot of different students who are studying different things, but within the creative sector as well. So something to keep in mind. What are the 5 most important job skills for the future? Now, this was listed by Forbes, who did a study, and they found out that companies are looking for emotional intelligence, creativity, adaptability and flexibility, data literacy, as well as tech savviness. Now, subjects in the creative industry cover quite a few of those skills. So in terms of a company maybe focused on whether or not you know so-called business, right? Now, that's studying business can be very helpful, but at the same time, they're looking for more than that. They want to make sure that you have skills that are going to allow you to pivot and adapt quickly and be innovative and come up with new ideas. And that really is tied in the creative sector. I always like to return to this quote from Klaus Schwab, who's the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. He says, we must develop a comprehensive and globally shared view of how technology is affecting our lives and reshaping our economic, social, cultural, and human environments. There's never been a time of greater promise or greater peril. So it's really up to us how we shape our future, and creative individuals are going to play a massive part in that future. So let's talk about what exactly can you do? I'm talking about there are a lot of jobs. Well, what are these jobs? Well, we have everything from publication designer to director. Maybe you want to be a fashion illustrator or a studio artist. You can do preservation design, even city planning. Maybe you're a concept developer. There are many different pathways. So speaking a little bit about employability. For the USA, the creative industry is close to a $900 billion industry. That number is just mind-blowing. So you have almost 3.5 million people employed in that sector and close to 700,000 art-related businesses. 54% of the population either created or performed. So that's a pretty significant number. So these jobs absolutely exist, these companies exist. So now you need to exist as a student studying in this sector. A couple more figures here if you're not convinced. Movies and TV shows accounted for $17.6 billion in the US economy. 8.5 were focused in manufactured jewelry. Sometimes students come up to me and they say, you have a major in jewelry? Yes, absolutely, we have a major in jewelry, and this is why. 10.1 billion is arts-related software publishing, so anything from games, photo processing software. Of course, creative advertising is going to be a big one, right? Most companies are going to want to make sure they have really strong advertising. So that's 12.8 billion. And then we round it out with $6.8 billion in arts good, and that's everything from blown glass to pottery to canvases, certainly also a thriving sector. And this one I always like to include too for performing artists. The percent of individuals attending something in the performing arts field has increased to over 20% in the United States. So that's really exciting to see in that as well. Now, something else to consider, McKinsey & Company is a massive consulting company, and they did a study of over 300 companies and took a look at the actual value of creative thinking. And what they found is that design-led companies had 32% more revenue and 56% higher total returns to shareholders compared to with other companies. So this really showed them that it's not enough just to know about business and marketing. You have to be able to think differently, because that is really what's going to set you apart and make sure that your business is really able to thrive, especially in different and challenging environments. COVID really pointed that out to us. The companies that did well were able to pivot and change either the product themselves, how they were delivering the product. A lot of companies went virtual. I mean, we've seen now that we're on Zoom and it's really not that big of a deal, but a couple of years ago, no one was really doing that on a consistent basis. And so these companies had to see those gaps in the market and adapt. And a lot of times that meant creative individuals helping them along the way. So I think this is a really good example of combining different interests as well, because sometimes students come to me and they say, well, I'm really interested in science, but maybe I'm also really interested in painting. How do I reconcile those two interests? So Tabish Hamid, he was a SCAD alum. Now he studied coding in Pakistan, because he really did have that kind of right side of the brain, very interested in having everything all laid out in computer science. But then he realized that's not enough for him. He did have a creative side. He wanted to fulfill that. And so he decided to study interactive design as a master's. And that's something to keep in mind. Just because you study one thing at the undergraduate level, it doesn't mean you can't shift gears for a graduate level as well, and really kind of combine your interests, but also make yourself very valuable with your skill set. And that is exactly what he did. And he got a job at Google where he combines those interests, right? Where he's doing coding, but he's also very much including the aesthetics of interactive design as well. Something else to consider when you're thinking about going to an art and design specific university. So there are universities that are more liberal arts and they have different programs, and then they also have an art sector. That can be quite helpful if maybe you really you can't decide. You might do science, you might do art, you need to go to an institution that has both. That can be great. But on the flip side, if you know you're a creative individual, maybe you don't know the exact major or focus yet, but you know you're going to do something creative, there can be a lot of benefit in going to a creative specific university. And the reason for that is because of the people and the resources you're surrounded with. The reason this slide is up here right now is because that is a fashion designer in the middle, Christopher John Rogers. Now, he came up with a fashion line with fellow graduates that are in his class that were basically his friends. And he pulled from an industrial design major, fashion major, dramatic writing, and fashion marketing and management. So very different majors, but he was able to keep in contact with them and realize, you know what, guys, it's fun to work together. We're all really talented. We can do it together because they were at the same university. And the other thing to keep in mind is that in art and design specific university, that is the only thing that they do. So they're going to want to make sure that all of their resources are dedicated to helping those creative individuals flourish. And career services are going to be solely focused on the creative career sector, right? They're not necessarily helping someone doing engineering because there's not an engineering major. So that's something to kind of consider if you are torn between, well, do I do art and design specific or maybe more of the liberal arts? Both have positives and both have a few drawbacks. So it's just good to kind of consider both of those. Now, when you think about, well, who exactly is hiring from creative specialties? That is everyone. Not quite everyone. Maybe I'm being a little bit overdramatic there, but so many different companies. This is just a really small screenshot of what these look like, whether that's Chanel, Teen Vogue, Apple, Amazon, BuzzFeed, Gulfstream. I mean, when you think about advertising alone, you have almost every company having an advertising sector, right? And then you have specific, really creative companies like a Pixar that, of course, their entire staff is basically going to be creative individuals. So do not worry in terms of what companies are going to hire you. You have many, many different options. And remember that just because a company has a specific product, it doesn't mean they don't have other departments, right? Like those advertising and like user experience design, where you're actually coming up with the app or the website and figuring out how the user is going to interact with it. That almost doesn't matter what the company itself is focused on. You're there to design the app, right? So that's where you really have a lot of options. Something else to consider, STEM. Oftentimes, people are unaware that the world of art and design really does fall under the STEM category still. All of these programs that you see are recognized as STEM programs. Now, that can be helpful in not only allowing you to pursue a STEM opportunity, but also keeping in mind that if you come to the United States, you come on a student visa, and that visa can allow you to work in the United States for usually about a year after you graduate. If you do a STEM program, you can then extend that by an additional 2 years. So that would be a total of 3 years of working in the United States. The company does not have to sponsor you. It is tied to your student visa. So that can be really valuable if you're wanting to have some time to work in the US. Now, taking a look at a couple just examples, animation, right? We think of that as one subject with maybe a couple different careers. No, not at all. There are going to be so many different paths that you can choose, even just within one specific major. So whether you're going to be a 3D or 2D animator, digital modeler, maybe you're going to do stop motion, animation producer, maybe you're going to do a technical director. And again, who's hiring? Well, we have Disney, Pixar, Nickelodeon, Electronic Arts, DreamWorks, Lucasfilm Animation. You have so many different options. And the reason why I also include this slide is because it's a screenshot actually from our website. Now, the reason I highlight that is because most universities have really comprehensive websites and they are a great resource. Oftentimes you'll see a tab that'll say careers, and that's a great way to figure out who's hiring, what are their students doing, how many of their students are being hired or graduating itself. Those are really important stats to keep in mind. We also have interactive game development, right? That can be everything from game design to interactive designer, social media. You have Google, you have Autodesk, Frog Design, many different examples. I always incorporate this slide because just to hit it over the head with a hammer, creative programs are focused on innovation, are really being top of the line leaders in the industry. Google came looking for a university to come up with a program for user experience design, that program that I mentioned earlier. And that's because they were desperate for young individuals having those skills. So again, that kind of idea of studying art and design means you're going to be a starving artist, and that's the fate for you. That is incredibly old-fashioned and just not true anymore. Look here, this is Google. They want those individuals. So, take heart in the fact that you can absolutely pursue something you're passionate about and be very successful with it. To prove that even further, 99% for SCAD in the past 5 years have been employed within 10 months or seeking further education. So it very much happens on a frequent basis. Now I'm going to go a little bit further ahead so we can talk about portfolios. And I know I've been talking for a little bit, so please, I have the chat box open. If you have questions along the way, feel free to put in those questions. And of course, we'll have some time afterwards as well. So shifting gears, to get yourself into an art and design university, you're going to need a portfolio. Something to keep in mind is every university is going to be a bit different. We're all going to have different expectations and different requirements. And I do apologize for that because it makes it a bit tricky on your end. But we are here to help as well. So make sure that you go on our websites, reach out to universities themselves. They often have someone just like me who's super eager to help you along the way and make sure you know what exactly you should be doing. So one thing that I always tell students is make sure that you start early and often. Whether that's taking art and design classes at your school, keeping a sketchbook or a journal at hand, it's always better to have too many pieces to edit down from than having too few, right? That makes it pretty tricky. So you want to make sure that you are starting early. Seeking feedback. Take advantage of who you're surrounded with at your school. If you're in an art and design class, make sure that you speak with the actual teacher and understand what are they thinking about your work. Where can you improve and where are your skills right now? What are you maybe really good at? You can also seek feedback from fellow peers, even family members. And then I also always encourage students to choose someone who maybe doesn't know you super well. The reason for that is because a university, is going to look at your work with no context. They don't know who you are. Oftentimes, they're not even looking at it at the same time as looking at the rest of your application. At least for SCAD, we have a completely separate portfolio committee that says, great, this is a portfolio that's focused on photography and painting. What are we looking at? And so it can be helpful to have someone who doesn't know you super well and tell you, these pieces look great, these pieces maybe I'm confused about, this is how I feel when I see this piece. And then maybe you can step back and say, okay, yeah, I can understand that. I'm going to make some edits, or maybe I'll take that one out. It helps you shape your portfolio. Different types of portfolios. This is where it's really important to understand who you are submitting to. Oftentimes there is a choice between these, whether that's film, audition, writing, or visual art and design. Sometimes universities will say, if you are applying to study film, you have to have a film portfolio. Sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes it's very much, hey, we want to see what can you do right now? And then you'll figure out what you want to study at our university later. So just making sure you understand what they're looking for. And obviously that's going to affect what programs you maybe apply for as well, because if you have nothing that you've done in film, look at a university who's going to be more flexible with that portfolio. If you can think of your portfolio as a type of visual interview, I always think that's kind of a helpful mindset, because that's really what it is. Instead of you coming into a room, sitting down and saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, and this is maybe why you should include me at your university. That's really what your art should be saying for you. Make sure that you edit, just like with essays. Hopefully you are not writing one draft of an essay and hitting send. You're going back, you're making some edits, you're adding, you're subtracting, you're having someone read it over. Same process for portfolios. And then make sure that you consider the composition as a whole. Nowadays, most portfolios are submitted virtually, and oftentimes that means at some point a portfolio committee is actually seeing all of your images laid out on a screen. So that can be really helpful for you to consider, well, what exactly does that look like? Is there a bit of cohesion there? Is it nice and clean and crisp? Maybe there's a bit of a theme. Doesn't have to be, but oftentimes it can be helpful if when you see all those images, you're like, okay, this is from me because I kind of have this specific style and I can really see that. I chose images that really highlight that. That can be helpful. These are classic tips that you're going to see in the art and design classroom, right? Using strong values, making sure that there's an accurate color balance when you upload it. If you need to edit the image after you upload it to make it actually more accurate to what it looks like in person, totally fine. Make sure that you crop the image, fill the entire frame, use unusual angles. Those are always good art and design tips to keep in mind. As I mentioned before, most portfolios nowadays are submitted digitally. So making sure that you understand the correct format, that you upload it to the correct platform. Sometimes students will kind of just email me their portfolios, and we have a specific platform. So that's just a delay when it happens. I have to tell them, no, that's not correct. I'm not even going to look at it right now. You have to do it via this platform. So make sure that you know what that platform is. And then you'll also have a chance to include a little bit of writing, and that writing should be dedicated to the title. What is the size? Because remember, we can't see it. So is it the entire wall or is it a miniature? And then if there are any specific viewing instructions. Something to keep in mind is because we're uploading this digitally, the last step of your piece should not be that final brushstroke or development of the photography image. It's going to be taking the photo of it. So make sure that you take a really good quality photo. Whether that is inside, you want to make sure there are 2 light sources that can help in terms of making it nice and bright, but not have a glare. Or even better, choose a day where it's like high clouds and has that kind of bright look, but again, less shadows. Great day to go ahead and go outside and photograph your work. A couple things to avoid. Cropping, that's really important. When we have images where there is objects in the background and it's quite distracting, or we see the artist's hand in it, it just makes it really messy, distracting, and less emphasis on your piece itself. For cliches, make sure that you keep in mind universities are receiving thousands upon thousands of submissions. So it's important to make sure that the pieces you're including really are intentional. Our head of portfolio committee once said to me, if I have to see another eyeball, I'm going to scream, there are just too many. So make sure that you're kind of considering really unique pieces. I know we include kind of nature there. I said flowers and sunsets. It doesn't mean you can't include nature pieces, but it means that they really need to be special in some capacity, right? It's got to say something. It has to be more than just, hey, we went on a great vacation and here's a sunset, because that's not enough. In terms of unfinished work, this is going to be a little different per university, but for the most part, universities are looking for finished pieces. And then plagiarism, that's a good rule in life. Don't do it. Art and design, it can get a little bit a gray area because, of course, there are many influences, and that's completely fine. You just got to make sure that you tell us, so that way we know that you are pulling from those influences. Now, I have just a few examples and then we'll wrap up, as long as we're okay with time still, Victoria. Okay, great. So just a couple examples. Every single year we have what we call a SCAD challenge, and that is an actual portfolio competition where you submit one image in a specific category. So these are some really best ones to give you a sense of what that might look like. So this won the first place for a 2D design, sandlot softball. You can see just in how it's presented, right? That image alone, you could find that on Google. It is complete, it's finished, it's cropped. Really, really great example of the artist's skill, creativity, and playing around with the person's facial expressions, the folds on the shirt. That's really quite talented. Color choice, and then of course the background having that circle in a square. Really just a beautiful piece. Now I like kind of showing it back to back with this image because very different, right? But this still falls under the 2D design category, and you can still see why this is a valuable image. The subject matter is really kind of intriguing. It's a little bit, oh, I don't know what's going on. There's emotion connected to that. And then the skill of the artist as well is showcased. Those crows are drawn in really good detail. The decision to have some of them going off the page, so it's not all crisp and clean on it, was very intentional and really made it a stronger image itself. Now this is for photography. Great image that is contrasting colors, very summer. You have the circle of the donut that he's in with the squares of the pool. Just a really fun piece. And of course, the decision to take it up above high in the air makes it a really unique perspective. This one I like including because it is tied to nature, but it's different than just that sunset that we were talking about, right? So you have to be good at photography to even capture an image like this, to make sure that you have the stars and that it's all in focus like that. But then they also chose to have the car there with the blue light in the front, the red light in the back, someone standing on top, and they're kind of reflecting both those lights as well as shining one of their own. Really intriguing image. Again, very clean, crisp, presented really well, quality. This one is also helpful to include, I think, because it shows how to showcase 3D work. Lots of details are in this sculpture, in this bust, and we want to make sure we can see them because we can't walk up to it in person, right? So it's your responsibility to take multiple photographs at different angles to show us what that looks like. And then this student decided to have a black background, and that has allowed us to focus only on his sculpture. So there's no question of what else is going on. It's very well lit. You could even zoom in and see all those details. This one's a fun one, graphic design, playing around with typography, the model's position, as well as color scheme, and the background. Just a really fun image that's a great job of showing that this student has played around with graphic design. And then for fashion, if you do a fashion portfolio, we want to see your kind of fashion line, right? What does that look like? Making sure that it's on drawn models itself. And then if you have made the piece, we want to see it on a live model. It's so much more interesting to see it on a live person than just hanging, right? And this student even went a step further and took multiple photographs with the model moving, which makes it really interesting. And you can see the full depth of that piece itself. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope that this information was helpful. I know it was quite a bit, so you might be digesting still, but I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that way we can open it up to any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Olivia, for such a wonderful presentation. I highly enjoyed it. It was very informative. And I would just like to thank you for joining us today and for sharing your knowledge with our students. And for our viewers, I would like to encourage you as well to put down any comments you may have in the comments. And of course, if you have this opportunity, you could also unmute yourself and ask questions directly.
Absolutely. Happy to answer any questions, whether that's related to portfolios, maybe the universities, applications, anything at all.
And while we wait, I actually have a question of my own, if you don't mind.
Great.
And my question relates to some of the common mistakes that you see students make when sending in their application or their portfolio. So some things to look out for.
Sure. Absolutely. That's a great question. First and foremost, it's honestly just following directions. It seems simple, and it happens very often where a student is submitting something in the wrong place, or they don't have enough images connected. And we understand why that happens. And I sympathize students for having to apply to so many universities and whatnot. However, it is always a negative thing, right? It delays the process. We have to contact the student. From a first impression perspective, that's not going to be the #1 impression you want to be making. So make sure that you go ahead and read those directions. That would be one thing. And then I would also say that students sometimes submit pieces or even essays that they think the university wants to see or read. And honestly, it's so much better when you stay true to yourself and say what you want to say, because that's how you're really going to find the best fit as well, right? Because if a student, if a school is reading your essay and it's true to yourself and they're like, wow, this is amazing, that's a great way to connect with them, and you're likely going to be accepted and find that great fit. And on the flip side, sometimes if you're rejected, it's not because they're rejecting you and you're not a quality student. Sometimes it's maybe not a good fit, and that's a good thing to know that information. But oftentimes we can kind of tell when you're trying to tailor it into what you think we want.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful answer. I think a lot of students could really have food for thought and something to keep in mind whilst preparing their application. And we actually have a question from Dana. Dana, thank you so much for being with us today. And Dana is asking, can I include pencil sketches in my portfolio?
Sure, absolutely. What I would say is that when you say sketch, if it's a complete illustration, yes, absolutely. If it comes across as this is my sketchbook where I kind of just have ideas, not so much. We still want that final image. But I've had students do a drawing exercise in class and they take it home and really work on it some more and make it a complete image. Completely fine. That's great.
Thank you so much. And to follow up on Dana's question, I also get a lot of questions about, like, does the number of pieces that is including in the portfolio matter? So, like, is more better or worse?
Great question. I'm glad that you asked that. Students often feel pressure to hit that maximum amount, right? And across the board, universities are wanting quality over the quantity. So if there's a maximum number and a minimum number, don't worry too much about what that actually is. Usually the sweet spot is pretty much right in the middle. But even if you're hitting the minimum, again, I've seen portfolios that have been very strong in the minimum amount. They just have pieces that are all at that same level. The second that you start including pieces that are maybe a little bit less is where you know you've hit your limit.
Thank you so much for such an encouraging answer. And we've got another question from Maria. So Maria is wondering whether Savannah College of Art and Design provides any international, like, assistance or financial assistance to students from Ukraine.
Sure, that's a great question. So we do have scholarships across the board for all applicants, and that's going to be based on academics as well as your portfolio, and we ask for a resume as well. And then we have a couple additional smaller scholarships that are solely focused on being an international student and even a little bit of financial need. It is going to really be specific to an individual applicant. We look at each one individually. We do not at the moment have a specific scholarship for Ukrainian students, but if that's something that you would like to know a little bit more about your specific case, that's where reaching out to me, actually. I'd be happy to kind of discuss that more in detail with you.
Thank you so much for your answer, and thank you, Maria, for reaching out and inquiring about any assistance available. So another question actually from myself concerning the portfolio is about the art statement. So does every piece need to include an art statement?
So that's a little bit going to depend on the university. Oftentimes this is not always, but often they're asking for a artist statement kind of on its own, and then you have the separate pieces. Now, those separate pieces, it's important to still include at least some details, because again, we want name, the materials used, the sizing of it, and then oftentimes we do want some context. So what inspired this piece? What is the thought process behind it? And that's where universities it'll depend on whether they're asking for quite a bit of writing or not. But oftentimes you're not submitting 10 pieces that all require extensive writing, because that's just too much.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful. And well, a final question on my part would be about students who are interested in various mediums. So maybe they do sculpture, but they also paint or they sketch. So would it be okay to include multiple pieces in different genres?
Absolutely, definitely. So, if it's a university that says if you want to do fashion, you have to have a fashion line, that's going to be a little different. But other universities, including SCAD, very, very open to what can you do right now. And there's almost an understanding of your high school might not offer photography, so that's okay. You don't have to include photography images, but if you're really good at illustration and painting, incorporate that. And we still get to see, who are you as a creative individual? What are you saying right now? What do you want to say to the world? And in fact, then we'll help you say that in the world of photography if you want to do that later. But at least we have that crux of who you are and what you can do right now.
Thank you so much for such an encouraging answer, and thank you for your wonderful presentation. As I've said, I immensely enjoyed it, and I'm sure a lot of our students would find lots of useful information and would really look into the programs that Savannah College of Art and Design offers.
Fabulous. It was fantastic being here today. I'm going to go ahead and put my name and email in the chat, if that's all right, just so that way if there's any individual questions, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much from my side as well. And one last question, maybe unless some other guys will also ask, what about housing? Yes, how is it covered? Let's say it's mandatory to live on campus, because recently I have had several questions regarding housing, and sometimes parents prefer more that they're no longer kids, but still live on campus. So what's your offering for, let's say, undergrad students?
Sure. So at the undergraduate level, that very first year, it is mandatory. And I think that it is quite a good transition year for students, having that on-campus housing. So in Savannah, which is a much more kind of spread out campus for us, we're located throughout the city. We have a specific area, which we call the Hive, because SCAD's mascot is the bee. And it's gated, it has extra security, the buses stop right there, there's an eatery, there's an outdoor pool, you have laundry. All of that is in one area to kind of help facilitate that ease into independent university life. And then in Atlanta, which is very much, we are located in the heart of a downtown, so it's a different environment. It's the same concept though. That housing is like 50 meters from the building where you take most of your classes, and same concept with all of the eatery, those kind of resources are very much available to students in that area. It's a great way for students to build a community and get to know one another and feel that support when they might have moments of having a bit of homesickness or just needing help. So I think it can be really helpful regardless of the university, just for students to consider living on campus that first year.
Thank you very much.
And I would just like to say on my part, thank you, Tamar, thank you, Olivia, for making today's meeting possible, for sharing your insights, and for being with our students, being there for them and supporting them on their journey to US study. I would also like to thank our viewers today for being with us, for reaching out. Please do not hesitate to reach out to EducationUSA Ukraine directly if you would like to know a bit more about the application process, or you have specific questions regarding your statement of purpose or any other aspects of the process. And of course, if you're interested in the Savannah College of Art and Design, please reach out to Olivia and find out what programs are available to you and what financial support you may be eligible for receiving. Thank you so much, everyone. I wish you a lovely evening or a lovely day wherever you are, and I hope to see you at our further events this week. So have a wonderful day, stay safe, and stay with EducationUSA. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.